Greetings. I am Chi Vital, aka King Chi, and I am back with another tool for your toolkits. Welcome, welcome, family. We're here to talk about it. I told you I was going to change the format. I'm just back up a little bit. I was going to change the format and share with you all some subject matters that are a little triggering, but most importantly, I am honing in on mental health for the most part. Won't always be that, but this video is another video that should help you understand some of the underlying implications of what is cognitive dissonance. So, the title of the video is Talk About It Secretly Confused. All right. At some point, as adults, we've gone through this, and it can be quite uncomfortable. And we'll talk about why, and we'll talk about ways to alleviate it in a healthy way and ways to address it so that you can continue to be a healthy, growing, learning adult and not get stuck in some toxic thought patterns and behaviors. All right, welcome, welcome, peace, Dela, and congratulations. I just saw that your daughter graduated with honors. Shouts out to you because we all know as parents that when our children do really well, that we have a lot to do with that as well. So thumbs up to you. Thumbs up to this video. Thank you all for tuning in. Peace to Hootie and GPT, my Tahuti Faye, and peace Q Alchemist. Welcome back. So today's video, I decided to add to the talk about it, the trigger videos, because this actually speaks to triggers. Okay, another set of triggers, not triggers, the parasite, but triggers, the mental triggers that make us, you know, question, but quietly. And I'll explain why. Okay, the trigger here that I want you to write down because some of you just may never ever go to therapy. And that is part of cognitive dissonance. It's like you should, but you have some belief systems that kind of fight against this. Okay. So let's just start from the beginning and break it down so we all can get a little more comfortable without discomfort and stop secretly being confused. Because secretly being confused can lead to really, really terrible mental tension and anxiety. And it does not allow us the room to be creative, to learn, to expand our knowledge base, or to be able to take risks, chances, to practice things or to do things that we really, really do want to try. All right. So again, shouts out to you all. Peace, Cheryl Lee. Nice to see you in the chat. Long time no see. The trigger alert title here is When You Don't Practice What You Preach. Also, when you don't practice what you teach. Okay? Now, I think that if we're all honest, at some point, because we are very brilliant, we have the information, some of us are very well schooled, some of us are self taught, we read, we expose ourselves to so much information that on a cognitive level, we can understand information and we can share it. One of the things is that when we get to sharing the information, because one, we share information that we find valuable. Okay. There are other instances where we're sharing information because it stimulates conversation. So it may be, based in some type of drama. All right. However, just because we share the information that we have does not necessarily mean that it is something that you have adopted for yourself. Okay? And the thing here is that that's not really a problem. When I first mention it, automatically there's this There's a judge that comes through. It's why talk about something or share some kind of information if it's not necessarily part of your world or your practice. The first thing here is that when we are growing individuals, when we are maximizing on this experience here on earth, we're going to come across information that is still valuable, whether or not it is something that adds value to our own lives, or whether or not we are in a position to adopt the information to integrate it into our lives. And I want you to take a pause with that so that you can give yourself some grace, especially when you're in social circumstances or environments where you do truly feel like you want to share this information. For instance, some of you might be watching the YouTube videos, and there may be homework assignments that you yourself have not quite gotten to yet. And you may have experienced some of the benefits just from watching the videos. So, do you feel guilty just because you share the information with someone else? And perhaps that person, because they may have a different life balance, work balance set up, they're able to fully immerse themselves in some of the assignments, do the homework, and then want to come back to you, of course, because you introduced it to them and have a conversation. But in that conversation, you may experience some angst because now this person has taken the information that you've shared and has now experienced it for themselves on another level. Does it make it wrong for you? That all depends on how your brain is processing it. Okay? So, the main topic here in mental health that I want you to fully understand for yourselves, the name is cognitive dissonance. Okay? This is simply the state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as it's related to behavioral decisions and attitudes that may need to change. Okay? So, this is inconsistency in your thoughts and in your belief systems. Now, the first red flag here, okay, is that naturally human beings, we rely on a certain level of consistency to keep us at a particular level of calm. You know, the things that we rely on when we flip the switch for a light, we expect it to turn on the light. When we put our key in the door, we expect when we turn it for it to unlock the door. When we get home, we expect certain people to be in the household when we arrive. Whenever those things change, where our brain has already solidified certain patterns for our own comfort, okay? Whenever those things change, whether we have control over it or not, we already set ourselves into a swing of discomfort, okay? This is the way the brain works. So write this down. So I want you to write this down because it gives you an opportunity to look at yourself with a different set of eyes when you start to experience any form of anxiety or being hard on yourself in an inappropriate way. And I'm going to give you some tools to dismantle the pain that's created with cognitive dissonance. Talk a little bit about some of the beginnings of it and tie it into some of the lessons that you're being exposed to right now. All right. So there are about 4 to 7 um, main signs that you may be experiencing cognitive dissonance. So I want you to write this down or take a mental note. You can write this down later in the replay. All right. These 7 signs and symptoms that you're experiencing this, okay? The first thing is you're feeling uncomfortable. You may be feeling uncomfortable in the presence of a topic that's being discussed, or you may even be experiencing some level of discomfort or embarrassment by yourself. And this embarrassment comes from feeling wrong about certain decisions or beliefs that you have had in the past in the presence of new information that challenges the rightness of those decisions or those beliefs. So that's number 1. Okay? Number 2, you may find yourself avoiding the subject or avoiding the conflict of trying to express your newfound information, thoughts, or beliefs because you want to avoid the conflict of someone else reinforcing what it is that you believed before in the past. When you're in environments that the other people may not be in a place of wanting to change their beliefs or their behaviors or their attitudes about particular things, there's a lot of tension and stress when trying to embark on the journey of changing your mind, expanding your perspective, or even shifting your perspective all the way to the other side. And so instead of becoming a voice for this new information, you quietly sit in a space where, again, human beings, we need interaction, right? You place yourself in a position of isolating these new ideas, secretly feeling a bit conflicted or confused about information because the only other people that can give you a fair amount of feedback with your new information are people who have had the same beliefs as you to begin with. So when you're looking for that bit of feeling like it's okay to think outside the box, because naturally that happens initially with the new information. As bold as some people feel like, I've got new information, I just threw out my old ideas and I'm with this new idea. That's not how the brain really works. Okay? So I'm just keeping it real. This happens all the time. And it's a sneaky little thing. Okay? You want to share with other people who have had the same belief systems as you, because if they open up to reasoning the ideas, it will provide you a little more comfort with making some of the changes. But the danger here, the risk you're taking, is having other people reinforce the old belief systems and causing you to question whether you should change or you should deny what you've just been exposed to. Okay? So I'm just going to take a moment for a sound check, because last time my sound was getting hated on, I don't know, by this invisible wind or whatever. But is everyone able to hear me and see me clearly? Just press 1 or say yes in the chat. I appreciate it. Okay. Another sign or symptom of you experiencing cognitive dissonance is ignoring the facts. Just ignoring the facts. How many times have you as a parent told your children, do as I say, not as I do? As much as we accept that as a norm, a behavioral norm of being an adult versus what children are free to do, is definitely a sign that you yourself are experiencing cognitive dissonance. When I tell someone who I have authority over to do as I say, not as I do, I am acknowledging that I myself don't have the wherewithal or the discipline or the true full-hearted commitment to what I'm actually telling my child to do, or subordinates, because bosses can do the same thing, right? Bosses can tell the people who are working with them, this is how you have to do things, but they may not do those same things. You get it? All right. And this is so frequent that the more that I tell you about the signs and symptoms, you will realize that you've experienced it yourself. And so you're going to have more appreciation for the tools that come with this. Okay. The next one, talking yourself off of the ledge. Here comes in rationalization. If you find yourself in a conversation or in an environment, okay, when you're about to make a decision or do something where you have to spend extra time mentally preparing yourself to do this thing because you're so uncomfortable, you are actively choosing to do something that goes against your beliefs. And in that discomfort, you're trying to rationalize why it's okay to do this. The conflict or the mental tension that you're experiencing is called cognitive dissonance. Okay? The next thing, signs and symptoms. If you ever feel fear stricken, like everybody is about to drink this unknown concoction, but everyone is doing it, and you get your cup, right? You got your cup. You look around the room, and in your head, right, not only are you experiencing trying to rationalize doing what it is that you don't fully know if you believe yet, right? But you are now willing to move forward totally out of the fear of missing out. So FOMO is cognitive dissonance. When you're fearing that you might miss out on something rather than genuinely being interested in a subject matter or an activity, and it's really because there's a lot of other people that are engaging in something, and you don't really have a background to feel like you should be present with whatever that decision or that content of information is, you are totally in a space of fear that somehow everyone else knows something that you don't already know. And you're going against your own cognition to try and prove yourself worthy in that environment, or prove yourself willing somehow to be one of the beliefs you're holding in your mind, where it may be a belief like, I believe I'm open-minded, so when I get into environments where there's going to be something totally new presented, I feel like if I don't do what everyone else is looking very confident about doing, then I would not be in alignment with this other belief. But something in me has me wanting to maybe not partake. That's a moment where you're experiencing cognitive dissonance. All right. There are two others that I'm going to share for today. We can experience shame. Shame, 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 shame. Now I want to there's two really strong experiences, and I will speak to environments that are just loaded with opportunities for you to experience cognitive dissonance. But one of them is finances. Okay? You may have told your family that you're working on your finances and now you're on a savings plan. But here comes the holidays and you go and you max out on your cards to get gifts for everyone. All right. You feel shame about it because, one, you told everyone that you were going to be saving money. You needed to move differently. And so you got everyone to show up and be like accountable for your decision, right? But now when you show up to give everyone all these gifts, you worry if anyone is going to wonder, well, did you have enough money for that? Where did it come from? Are you still on that same plan? Very similar to when you say you're on a diet, right? Similar to when you say, oh, I'm cutting back on my sugar, or I'm not drinking alcohol anymore. Sometimes we create these environments of cognitive dissonance because we swing so far to the opposite side of a belief system that we don't allow ourselves the grace of growth in between for us to adopt a new belief or a new habit or new behavior. Okay? And followed with that shame, there's guilt. All right? And the guilt is going to come from hiding, hiding your new beliefs in certain things because you don't want anyone to know that you may have been wrong about something that you believed in the past. Or you don't want anyone to know that you think that they're wrong about what they believe or they're doing now in your presence, where once upon a time you were okay with it. And so you sit there with guilt because how many of us really, really hang our coats on? I'm a good friend. I keep it real. I got integrity. And then you're around your homies. You know that you've changed your lifestyle in quite a bit of ways. And you know why. Let's say, for example, you used to smoke weed every day, chilling with your friends. That was the thing. You go to work, you come out of work, you get a drink, you're smoking weed, you guys chill, and then you do it all over again. And now you've changed your lifestyle, but you still have the same friends. You still love your friends. But when they pull out the J and you're like, oh, my job does testing. You could be lying, right? Because you just don't want to let them know that you actually have a judgment about the practice now. And you don't know how to explain that you're not judging them, but the activity itself is just not for you anymore. And as much as this seems like a simple thing to communicate, when we have really, really strong bonds with each other, we don't only bond on an emotional level, we don't only bond in a physical space, we bond psychologically. And these psychological bonds create consistency. We like the consistency of knowing who we roll with. We like the consistency of knowing who we can do certain things with. And so when that changes as human beings, it challenges us. And that's called cognitive dissonance. So I'll take a moment because I just said a whole lot. But press one in the chat if at this point you're like, oh, yes, I have definitely experienced cognitive dissonance. And you might be experiencing it right now. There are 3 particular areas where these subjects generate the most mental tension and cognitive dissonance for adults. That will be around racism, sexism, and religion. In my book, The Chosen Life, the very first chapter speaks to the idea of spirituality and your belief system of what God is, and if you even believe in a God. So there's the belief in a God, or a belief that there is no God. And then there's a belief if there's in a God, if you do believe in God, Is there a God outside of you, or is the God inside of you? Now, I haven't mentioned in the book all these other variations that might exist for people, because that's just the basic foundation. But in the ISIS papers by Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she speaks about this foundational belief in God, or the presence of God or the absence of God, and one's foundational understanding and belief system in self, in who I am, and what is the expectation of who I am from the level of being a child who has no desire to know who I am because they just here, okay, to being told what is and what is not true when it comes to their creation and their being here on the planet. So I bring this up because for individuals who are in this space of consciousness and spirituality and trying out new things, learning about different deities, learning about different philosophies, the idea of or concepts of divine beings, aliens, God, um, taking it all the way back to even what does a God figure with that is humanized or personalized with a color, there, all of these things are within the psyche. The white God versus the black God, um the deities that look like you versus the deities that don't look like you, the names of beings that sound familiar, the languages that are different or they're the same, or just adopting a belief system that is and I am with the all, okay, and not having an answer sometimes to what exactly is the all. But when we're presented with just the concept of creation, of questioning the beginning of time, and who has the answers of what is the closest thing to the truth, there's going to be an experience of cognitive dissonance that can generate anger, that can generate nervousness, anxiety, mental tension, inability to sleep, okay? Isolation, withdrawal. These are all real psychological symptoms of being presented new information that challenge some of the basic principles of our sense of who we are here on this planet as human beings. Forget about who you are with any other title. All right? Now, here's the thing. Cognitive dissonance is not always a bad thing. All right. So when I go to share some tools with you, the reason why I wanted to give you some tools is because there are going to be symptoms. So you need to have some coping or defense mechanisms that are healthier versus you stuffing it and secretly dealing with this stuff. Because one and two things are for certain, right? One, in most workplaces, adults experience the greatest level of anxiety and mental tension because they are totally different within themselves, their value systems, culturally, than their work environment. And they are forced by means of survival to adopt a work culture. Many adults get up and go to work even when it's within their own business. The way that they speak with other people, deal with other adults, deal with having adults that are their authority figures, or deal with adults that are the same age or older and they are subordinate employees, dealing with customers. Work culture is one of the highest stress creating environments simply behind the fact that you are asked to exist in an environment that goes against the consistent belief patterns that you already hold for yourself. So you spend a large amount of your time and existence going against yourself. Because most of us, like when we were in school, the school system, spend most of our hours in a building that tells you one thing, you have to behave a certain way, versus how you're going to be at home. And when you're working full time, you spend more time in the workplace than you do at home. All right. And so this is where you get to realize the seriousness of mental health and having these tools so that you can really move with more flow, compassion, some grace for yourself and for others when you see how much stress you really are dealing with. Okay? Why you're so triggered. Okay? So some of the ways that people cope are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 that I want to help you with. Okay? There's denial. Now, denial is something that is a defense mechanism in the way that it's automatic. When we hold to really strong beliefs about someone or some place or something, and we receive information that says that that thing or that person or that business is, for example, corrupt. However, we've held it in great esteem for a long time. Rather than even entertaining the possibility of that being true, a defense mechanism will say, that's not even possible. Okay? Now, this can work for you or against you, because in some situations, right, there are people who absolutely experience something that is not okay. And simply because of cognitive dissonance, when they take that information to others that they feel will look out for them, they are not believed. But it's not that they're not believed. There's a defense mechanism where the other person moves into denial. And so that's where we can find it to be detrimental, because something real that has occurred can get either swept under the rug or totally wiped away, okay, and never dealt with. Which leads me to the other defense mechanism, which is avoidance. Now, how can denial benefit you? I would say this: a taste of denial will at least encourage you to take some space to allow discernment to come forward. The problem here with cognitive dissonance is that if the belief system is so strong held, discernment is not available, because there is a bias that is so strongly held that the perception will not change no matter what, which brings us back to denying the facts, ignoring the facts. All right? So the level of denial that ignores the facts, meaning there's hard evidence about a situation, is where it's dangerous. But where there's a bit of denial that requests further evidence before doing the most, which is believing the new information. Okay? Some people take it for granted that the psyche has to do a lot to unwire long held beliefs. A lot of people take it for granted that their fatigue is due to constantly having to live like a two-faced reality, at work being one way, get home being another way. That is part of what drives uh, the adrenals into submission, like overkill. All right. But if we have further information, okay, then we can go, okay, now that I have this information, I can begin to do the work necessary to unwire or untie the knots that I have created in my psyche around holding this belief, which now I have evidence must be changed, or else I might be putting myself in danger. Okay? Avoidance. Avoidance is much like I said, you want to just discontinue contact with people because, for example, you did not necessarily keep your word with how you said you would be. Like if you told people that you'll keep it 100, I'm always keep it real. If I feel some kind of way, I tell somebody I feel some kind of way. And then in that moment where you have a situation where you're asked, how do you really feel? But you back down, right? What do we call it? Copping a plea. You back down and you deny how you really feel. Instead of being in that environment any longer where you can't really hide how you really feel, you avoid contact at all costs. And that is the defense mechanism because the belief about the self is challenged in that moment. You know what I mean? Like once upon a time, you really, really had a hard belief that you're so hardcore, so gangster, like anything changes, like I'm just gonna keep it real and just say how I feel. And you get an opportunity when you really don't feel the way that you always said you would feel, and you just back out. Okay, that level of avoidance is also coupled with some people do ghosting, right? And behind that can be a level of cognitive dissonance. It's not always spiritual. It's not like it's not always that. Okay. The next piece, which is a defense mechanism, which I find very helpful, okay, is questioning the new information. It can go either way because sometimes when we're presented information, it might be new information, but it may be new information that further reinforces our beliefs. So, for example, if I believe that having a drink every day is healthy for me, and someone brings me information that's new information, like I just already believe that, and somebody goes, oh yeah, red wine is high in antioxidants and it's really good to have, you can have a drink or two every day, it's not bad. It's new information, but I don't question it because it reinforces my belief. Now if I have this belief and somebody comes forward and goes, oh no, in red wine the tanners are really terrible and they can lead to you being depleted nutritionally, I might question, well, where you got that information from? Because in Italy or in Spain, they drink red wine every day and they really live a long time. Stuff like that. Okay? Cognitive dissonance is only questioning the information because it doesn't support your belief system. Not questioning it from a place of like no bias. Okay? One of the downsides of not checking when cognitive dissonance is present is that over time, right? Imagine you go through denial, avoidance, questioning new information. If you don't sit and take the time to really understand why you're secretly confused or why you're secretly conflicted about information, what you can end up doing is developing low self-worth. And a lot of people think that this is a hard way to go. Like if you're really confident, you feel like it's really hard to end up in a position where now you have low self-esteem. Like, nah, I could never. I could never. Like, I'm feeling myself. I can never have low self-esteem. I'm telling everybody else to have high self-esteem. But if you have cognitive dissonance at play for long enough, right? What you're going to start to do is you're going to place yourself around other people that are either people pleasers or they're yes men. And you're going to place yourself around people like that because your defense mechanism is going to have you be avoiding spaces that trigger the cognitive dissonance. So you end up putting yourself around people that you either can manipulate or they won't push up against your belief systems. Eventually, what happens is your muscle, your confidence muscle, gets weak. So as soon as you end up being in the presence of people who have new information or appear to be more intellectual or know something that you don't know, that same I'm confident and I'm open-minded and I can dibble and dabble and really have these conversations about things that I may know nothing about, that ability starts to decline because you begin practicing being around people that don't level you up in that way. You no longer want to be around iron sharpens iron because mentally it's too stressful. Mentally, it creates too much tension. And you may not recognize it until you're in an environment where you used to float and then suddenly you become like the fly on the wall instead of mixing and mingling. Suddenly you realize that you're a bit more quiet in an environment where you used to be able to hold the mic and hold a conversation, regardless of whether you were well versed in the information or not. And that will be a clue that you have placed yourself in a position to slowly diminish your self-worth and your self-esteem. Because one thing about having higher self-esteem is that whether you are the smartest person in the room or not, you value your opinion and you value your ability to know when you know nothing so that you can learn more. But when you start to feel less than or you feel like your confidence is starting to go down, you want crutches. You want crutches of people who are dumber than you so you can feel like the sharpest tool in the toolbox. Does that make sense? So the last thing that I do, I'm reinforcing what I'm talking about here is reflecting on your beliefs. When you experience cognitive dissonance, when you're in an environment where you're listening to new information and it's going up against your belief systems, it's that resistance that's felt that causes you to reflect. And without reflection, we definitely get stuck in time. And when we get stuck in time, that's not natural. That's not a natural happening of this world that we live in, because one of the truths and a consistent truth that is undeniable that we experience here on this planet is change, right? Ashe. So if we get ourselves into a pickle where we're refusing to change because the change feels like too much tension, that will be one of those places where you want to lean into your growth so that you can continue to stay in the rhythm of life. Because even death here on this planet is not permanent. The body goes into the ground and it continues to change and transmute and transform from one matter of energy into another. So when we do this, it is really causing disease within the mind. All right. Lastly, I talked about the work environment, which has been a main culprit for cognitive dissonance amongst the peoples. But COVID has changed a lot in a very short period of time within our belief systems about what is possible for ourselves using technology, what is possible for ourselves to get our jobs done from home, what is possible or available for us at home when we are spending more time with the people that we call family. It has pushed against so many deep belief systems that have been consistent for decades and decades and decades that, of course, we see this increase in anxiety and depression, not just because of nutrition, not just because of this immediate gratification, but because the psyche is so sensitive that these hard locked in belief systems around the thing that we do the most, which is our daily routine, has been changed overnight and without any time to reason it, had to be accepted as a new reality. So when you understand this about yourselves, sure, be triggered when you're secretly confused or conflicted, but also take some time to sit with and reflect on your personal beliefs, where they stand, and if it makes sense to shift them. I hope y'all enjoyed this lecture. It was pretty meaty, but I feel like it was necessary for me to speak to you all on this subject matter because we got to take care of our minds. Mental health is definitely a topic that I am passionate about, and I do not want us to bypass this in the name of being conscious or spiritual beings at all. I want us to be able to embrace this piece and understand more about how our minds work as we are going into the deep end of beginning who we are. Okay? That's it for y'all. That will be your homework assignment. It's self-led. Okay? The Chosen Life is available for you all on Amazon. You can click the link in the chat if you want to go and grab that. I would suggest it. It's very simple, and it gives you the opportunity to look at some basic but foundational belief systems that move throughout your lives, okay, and give you options of how to choose. Because that's the only way you're going to get free of being triggered this way. Is understanding how you position yourself to choose differently as opposed to feeling stuck and not sure how do you do that. Okay? We need more information. So again, the link is in the chat. You can go right to Amazon and you can find my book, The Chosen Life by Chi Vital. And for everyone who purchased your Tina Turner oud, your Tina Turner oud went out, plus your gift, because it was a buy one get two for one special. You're gonna definitely enjoy that. Don't forget to leave a review on the HOC Wellness page and in the Facebook groups. I would greatly appreciate that. And I look forward to connecting with you all again and triggering you some other way. If you have any ideas or things that trigger you, leave it down in the comments and suggest it as a topic for me to cover. And I will take a look at it and create another lecture for your development. Peace, love, and bliss.